Well, good evening, everyone. I said good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, all right. Let's act like we're here to learn something, you know. Well, as you all know, I'm Eric Arnold, and I'm an addictions counselor. And I've been working in addictions, the field of addictions, for about 25 years. For the last 15 years, I've actually been working with the adolescent population, primarily that have been involved in the criminal justice system. So working with a group that not only are making poor decisions about social issues, they also make poor decisions about personal issues as well. So, working with this population has been more than a challenge, as you all very well know. And trying to help a group like this to understand the dynamics of addiction is easier said than done. You're dealing with a group who's been fed a lot of misinformed information from misinformed people who have told them that marijuana don't do nothing, that it's not a drug, and that can't nothing happen if you get high. So you know, our job off the pack is tough. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's important that when we work with this population, we have to be armed with facts and not opinions. We can't be going in there opinionating. We need to be giving them factual information that they can actually look up. Because believe it or not, there is a lot of misinformed information on the internet. Especially by groups that are pro drug use, pro marijuana use. They talk about that marijuana doesn't do all the things that the scientists have already proven that it does actually do. So, you know, one of the things that I like to start out with is a fact. A fact is this, is that before this day ends, at least 3,500 young children, teenagers, juveniles will try drugs for the first time in their life today, and that's every day, statistically, and when you look at that number is staggering. When you think of all the information that's out here today in our society, that 35 young people will make a decision that will probably alter their lives forever. We are up against a battle, and for some of us, especially my facilitators that are working with the elementary students who have yet to stick their toes in that water yet, you really, got to be very convincing as far as helping them to understand, what drugs and alcohol really do. One of the things that I do is this, is that I tell them that it's important that you do some research. You seek out some information. You understand? Don't go by just what I say, but actually go and look it up yourselves. Don't listen to what the guy that's trying to introduce you to drugs say. Look it up and get some research from a notable site. Go somewhere where the information is based on science and not on hearsay, gossip, and rumors. So, that's why it's important that we actually, as facilitators, do some research ourselves so that we can be armed with some facts when we stand before these kids. One of the things that I always like to open up with is marijuana a drug? You know, and of course, what are some of the answers that we get?
Comes from the earth.
Just the herb.
It's what?
Just the herb.
It's just a herb. What else? What are some of the other responses we get? Is it a drug? Do they consider it a drug? Because I asked them to show by the show of hands. If I got 15, 16 students in my class and I say by the show of hands, how many of you have heard that marijuana is not a drug? At least 10 of those students will raise their hands and say that it's not.
Well, another one that they're starting to say is that it's getting ready to be legal.
Oh yeah. I hear that one too. And the way that you combat that is this, is that if it does become, let's say, quote, legal, or it does become a prescribed medication, key word is that it's a medication that you have to actually get a prescription from a physician for, and if it becomes legal, you still have to be 21 because it's a mind, mood altering
And
substance.
it's still gonna have a surgeon.
Right, exactly. So we're not gonna get into that one with them, yes.
But then they'll compare it to alcohol. It's no different. It's no different height and drinking.
Yeah, well, you know, the thing about drinking is this, is that that's why the legal age is 21, because now hopefully you're making a conscious decision about consuming alcohol. You know what I'm saying? And at 16, it's kind of difficult to make that decision based on what you know.
One more is pretty popular. I know somebody that's successful that smokes marijuana.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
He's a
Yeah, yeah.
doctor and he smokes every day.
He what?
He's a doctor.
Yeah, yeah, you know what? And I tell them, I tell them about the doctors and lawyers that I work with in my clinic. You know what I'm saying? That about to lose their license and their privileges, you know, to practice medicine, to practice law. You see, because what you see on the external is that everything is going great in their life.
Right.
But behind closed doors, their life is falling apart. Just like you. You know, how many people in your neighborhood know that you in a drug treatment program, or you getting help because you got caught with marijuana? As far as they see you, you look like the wonderful kid next door.
Exactly.
But the reality of it all is this: is that things are falling apart in your life.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
And you just kind of bring it back like that. You know what I'm saying? Because what we see, all we see is this, the external. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You know, just because somebody got a law degree or they're a doctor, it doesn't mean that they're immune to addiction. So once you get them to establish what a marijuana is, then you ask them, well, then let's just dispute all that. Let's find out, what is a drug? You know, what is a drug? And most people will tell you, you know, that a drug is something that changes you, you know, how you feel, how you act. And what I'd like to do is I usually like to give them the Webster's definition, which is that a drug is anything that changes the way that you feel mentally, emotionally, or physically, or changes your state of mind. And I asked them then, based on that definition, does marijuana meet that criteria? And of course, it does. So then now what we've just established is that despite what they've heard in the past, marijuana is a drug. So now we ain't got to argue or debate that no more. Okay, so that's a known fact. That now everything else that we're going to talk about that alters the way that you feel, think, or act is definitely a drug. So that shuts them down. Then once you get them to accept what that is, some of the questions I like to pose is, how many of you know what an addict is? Or what addiction is, should I say? How many of you all know what is addiction? Yes, sir.
Being out of control.
Being out of control.
Something you can't stop doing.
Something you can't stop doing. What else? Come on, come on. All of us sitting in here, we have a somewhat
Something that you crave.
something that you would crave. Okay, those are great responses. And let me ask you this: how many of you would agree with me that an addict is incapable of being in control of their lives? How many of you all would agree with that? You would agree with that? Because what we have to understand is that once a person becomes addicted to drugs, then all the things that really matter to them, they really don't matter no more. Because what we look at is this. What we have to look at is, what is addiction? Now, we established, you know, that people get addicted to drugs because drugs change the way a person feels, think, or act. Now, over a period of time, if a person continues to keep using the mind, mood altering substances, this will ultimately occur. And when we look at addiction, addiction is the pursuit of pleasure at the expense of your personal freedom. Now, for all practical purposes, you know, that looks pretty simple for us, but we have to remember that we're dealing with teenagers, we're dealing with young people.